right, first, can you introduce yourself, like your name, position, and anything else you want to add?
My name is Andrew Yang. I'm a first generation Hmong American, first generation student, now first generation professional. I am the Asian Pacific Islander DESE American Center Coordinator and Student Academic Success Counselor.
All right, sounds good. The first question is, what do you know about the imposter syndrome, and how would you define this in your own way?
You know, I think imposter syndrome is very real with being first generation, definitely. How would I define imposter syndrome is being in a space or being in a mental state where you feel like you don't deserve this certain position, you don't belong. If you're in a space where you don't see a lot of individuals that look like you feel as if you are the token, and you are only chosen as the token.
All right, sounds good. For the next one, do you think that there are any links to imposter syndrome and the model minority myth within the AAPI community?
Definitely. So that's a great question. In terms of the links, imposter syndrome and the model minority myth, they do intersect.
Mm-hmm.
For example, in my personal experience is there are some times where I feel as if, oh, am I just being chosen because I'm Asian American, or do they think I have these positive traits under the model minority myth that, and that's why I'm chosen for this, right? Makes me feel as if it's only because of my race that I'm qualified. On the other end, also is of being imposter syndrome is, there's this negative stigma that Asian Americans are not fit to be leaders, right? Because of the things that come with the model minority. So when you're surrounded in a room filled with majority of white individuals and white leaders, it is hard to think that you're not to feel welcome, to feel like you're deserving of that position. I don't know if that makes sense.
That makes sense.
Okay.
Something like a question building off of that. Do you ever feel imposter syndrome as a SAS counselor for APITA?
For my current position now, no, definitely. I think now that I'm in a position where I can help other students who come from a similar background as me, I tell them that if you ever have imposter syndrome, the best way to counteract that or navigate that is believe that you're there for a reason, right? And if you ever felt that way, just know that the work you do and the results you bring will prove that you're not, you belong. You're exactly where you need to be.
All right, that sounds really great. For the fourth question, can you share an example of a situation in your career or life where you felt like you were experiencing imposter syndrome, and how did this manifest, and how did it affect you?
I experienced imposter syndrome when I went for my master's program. And so I did my master's in higher education, and the environment itself wasn't the issue. The environment was very diverse in my master's program, but what was eating me up was internally. Oh, I'm getting my master's degree. Do I even belong here? There are concepts I don't understand. It was difficult for me to navigate through my master's program, and I felt as if, maybe this isn't for me. Maybe I don't belong in the master's program. It manifested because of me being first generation, me being the first to get my master's. I truly believe that I didn't belong because nobody else really got the master's in my family, and nobody else really was supportive. So I was my own and somewhat cheerleader or support system for my master's program, and I think internally I just felt as if I wasn't good enough. So that's something, again, imposter syndrome can come from internally or externally around your environment. And how the way I navigated that was, again, reminding myself of, hey, I am qualified. That's why I'm here. That's how I got accepted. And I'm going to see this through, because if I can get through my undergrad, I can get through my master's program.
Yeah. All right. Also, building off of that, you're saying like you were like your own cheerleader. You didn't. You're like your first person in your family to do that. Do you think the imposter syndrome was kind of also pushed because like your family wasn't really used to it, or like were they supportive about you being a master's like student, or how did that go?
You know, I think imposter syndrome comes from not seeing anybody that you know closely, not being not to be that role model, or more importantly, imposter syndrome comes when you're the first person to do it in your family, right? There's no template for you to follow.
Yeah.
So you feel as if what I'm doing is, am I in the right place? Do I belong? Because you're the first one to do it.
Yeah.
So in terms of family support, it was there, but it wasn't understanding support of what it was like to be in the master's program.
Okay, that's really great. Thanks for sharing that. For our fifth question, how do you maintain a sense of self-worth and confidence, especially in situations where imposter syndrome may be triggered? You can go back to like your master's program, or even just like advice to now in like the present time.
Advice to now is know that you are worthy of everything that comes your way. I always tell students that I see that express that they feel like they don't belong is you're in that position because you belong and you have value to bring. So sometimes imposter syndromes occur internally because of many different reasons, right? Different traumas, different family experiences. But the first thing is to acknowledge that you are exactly where you need to be. Second thing is, if it's environment wise and there's imposter syndrome, you need to identify allies that will support you and root for you. Those allies are your key to getting out of that imposter syndrome feeling and navigating the obstacles that are in your way around that environment.
Sounds good.
Am I going too fast?
No, you're good. You're good. Do you think that there are cultural or systematic factors that contribute to imposter syndrome within the API community? And if so, how can organizations address these issues?
Definitely, cultural and systematic factors are a huge contribution to imposter syndrome, especially in our API community. We talked a little bit about this, but just the model minority stigma.
Yeah.
Honestly, that's one of the contributions that might make API students, API faculty, staff, or professionals in a work environment or in a class environment have that imposter syndrome, right? Another contribution is, I would say, is the lack of representation. So again, if you're the only one in the room from a certain background, of course you're going to feel imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
You're going to feel as if, I don't belong. What do I do? How do I navigate it? And again, how organizations can address this is, I would say, increase the diversity pool. Intentionally, not just for the sake of diversity, but be intentional on making sure that students or individuals can see themselves in other people in the organization, and that will help minimize the feeling of imposter syndrome.
Okay. Do you think that like APITA Center accomplishes that, or do you think that like other organizations in the community accomplish that as well?
I think for the APITA Center in particular, our goal is to make sure all students are under the API category are being seen, being heard, and more important, being included. We have over 7,000 students here that identify as Asian American and 30 subgroups. So it can be, even within the API community, there can be imposter syndrome, even though we're all Asians, because it's so diverse. So I'll say our PETA Center has been doing a good job in ensuring that we are able to celebrate all API groups, traditions, and cultures, but more importantly, serve and provide different needs and services to them.
Oh, that sounds great. For our next question, could you actually, let me see. This one looks like something we've already covered, but let's see. Maybe I'll just ask like, do you think? Okay, I'm gonna change it a little. Do you think that imposter syndrome can kind of push someone to achieve success or recognition? Like, will it be a factor that makes them work harder? And do you think that contributed to your success in like your past experiences?
It can be a double-edged sword. Imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome can either motivate you or bother you to the point where you are stagnant. In my experience, anytime I experience imposter syndrome, it was more of a, hey, I'm gonna prove that I belong here. I gotta work 2 times harder to make sure that people feel as if, oh, you know what, he's more than just what he's more than just a token, or he's more than just what we thought he was, right? And imposter syndrome can be a motivating factor to the point where, in a sense, where you're proving that, hey, you do belong. But the whole issue of it is you shouldn't need to prove that you belong. You are already valuable. You're already there for a reason, and you already have how would I say, you should feel confident in your skill set already and not prove anything. I don't know if that makes sense.
That does. It's really good. Thanks for like molding to the question. But I think the last one for like the ones that I have lined up is just in general or kind of specifically, can you offer any advice to others who may be experiencing imposter syndrome, particularly within the AAPI community? And what would you say to someone going through these similar feelings?
Okay. I would say my advice is, again, I would reiterate, when you're in an environment and you feel like imposter syndrome, and you know that it's not you internally, but it's your external environment, identify allies that will help you, that will root for you. That is the most important aspect, and it will help you. That one is important. The second one is internal imposter syndrome, is acknowledging that you are there, you have the skill set, you have the value, and don't be too harsh on yourself. Well, what I say to someone going through similar feelings, I see students all the time, I always tell them that, again, if you ever have a sense of imposter syndrome, remind yourself how far you have come. You are not an imposter because of all the things you have done for you, your family. You are exactly where you need to be. That's what I would say.
That's really good. Those are all the questions that I have for today. Do you have any extra comments or anything you would like to add to like my notes or this recording?
I would say, when you find yourself not believing in you, remember everybody else who believes in your potential.
Okay, that's really great. All right, is that all? That's it. All right, cool. Thanks so much.
How long does your paper have to be?
It's 500 words.
You made it seem like it was gonna be a whole report.
It's not that much.
Oh, so easy. Okay, so I